Good morning. Good morning. It's always great to see such a small group making such a loud and raucous and wonderfully caring community kind of noise. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. Welcome to those of you who have joined us virtually, staying warm at home in your jammies with their feet on it. And it's great to see those of you who are here. Thank you for being here. It makes it a lot easier for us who are presenting worship to have folks to present it to. So thanks to Anna and the staff for making the week happen and making this a possibility. Thanks for Daniel and John in the AV room. Thanks for Abby and Sean for making our music today, and the choir. We get to hear the choir again today. And thanks to our wonderful worship associate, Catherine Costello. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, what a brisk morning. It feels different, doesn't it? I'm looking out to see if there's anybody out on. Is there anybody out on the sanctuary? It must be somebody from Buffalo, New York, if there's anybody out there, right? We are grateful whether you're here in the sanctuary or you're watching this on Facebook Live, or that you have found some time later to watch the recorded service on Facebook or YouTube. If you are new to our congregation, we are especially grateful that you have found us. Our hope is to make you feel welcome and help you find ways to connect. Here we learn and grow together and try to live our values both within and outside these walls. If you found us for the first time, we hope you will email our administrator so that you can catch up on our email news blasts, which are just full of wonderful happenings. And now let's settle ourselves into this time of worship with the morning's prelude.
We come together today to honor the universal community of seekers to which we all belong. We gather to consider our deepest places of safety that we might nurture ourselves and celebrate one another. We call into our presence this hour our ancestors, whose love, whose labor, whose commitment made it possible for us to be here now. And even in our separation, let us call one another to the table of abundance that we may feed on those fruits that sustain us and ever ask us to grow. Let us open to this moment with hearts that have no borders. And join together in the chalice lighting response that you see on your screen. In the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment, we gather this day. May the flame we now kindle be to us a symbol of the unity we seek. And let's join in humming together, at least, our opening hymn, presented in a way that maybe you haven't heard before. Enter, rejoice, and come in, something we haven't actually used for quite some time because it hasn't seemed appropriate when there's an empty sanctuary. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Tell you that just before the service, Sean comes up to me and says, wait, the whole service is based on a false premise. Says the prelude isn't actually J.S. Bach, it's C.P.E. Bach. He was all set to let it go, but we'll have to dig out an image of CPE and get it up there next time. But thank you so much anyway. So today's service is not based on a false premise. It's based on those folks among us who are here often, who do the work of a congregation week after week and month after month and year after year. Folks who dedicate their lives in some way to the life of a congregation. The title of the sermon talking about long haul people was given after a poem by a Unitarian Universalist minister, Rudy Nemser, who wrote about it. And let me share this with you. They happen in congregations when you're lucky. Other places too, though I mostly only know ecclesiastical varieties. Long haul people upon whose shoulders and pocketbooks and casseroles and daylight nighttime hours a church is built and maintained after the brass is tarnished and cushions need restitching. They pay their pledges full and on time even when the music is modern. Support each canvas, though the sermons aren't always short. Mow lawns and come to suppers, teach Sunday school when there's no one else and they'll miss the service, ask what they think of the minister, or plans for the kitchen renovation, or the choral anthem, or the Christmas pageant, or color of the bathroom paint, they'll reply, individuals and fashions arrive and pass. The congregation will be here, steady and hale, for a long, long time. It will, for long-haul people, bless a congregation with a very special blessing. This morning we have some unfinished business to take care of. In each of the last few years, we have given a Distinguished Service Award to one or more of our members who have truly been long-haul people and who have given their time and their talent and their treasure to this congregation above and beyond all expectation. And to present this year's award, a presentation delayed because of the virus, I invite up our distinguished president, Bill McCormick.
I hope you don't mind if I remove my mask. Because I can't use a microphone and my papers at the same time, may I take the liberty?
Please.
Okay. This is important, so I want to do it correctly. My name is Bill McCormick, and I'm here to honor one of our most distinguished members for her years of service to this congregation. I apologize if some of you have heard this story before, but my late wife Margie and I started coming here in 2000. Margie made a lot of connections with some members, and she became a member. Just before Margie passed away from ovarian cancer in December 2003, she wrote me her last letter with advice. As a good Unitarian wife, she was always giving me advice. But one of the most important items for me personally was that she advised me to come to this congregation because it had members who were kind and intelligent. So Margie passed in December of 2003, and I really dragged myself here because I was feeling lower than whale poop, so to speak, overwhelmed with grief. Grief is the price we pay for love. I entered the front entrance there, and as usual, there's a hubbub of animated Unitarians chatting. I was standing there trying to get my bearings. I was actually living in a wilderness of grief at the time, so I was kind of out of place. And then out of this bunch of chatting Unitarians came this petite lady who came up to me with open arms and hugged me and welcomed me. She recognized what I was going through at the time. That was the first time I met Flo Beckler, who was the awardee today. Little did I know that for the next 18 years, Flo would be the guide for me and other members of this congregation to fulfill our obligations to the wider community. And she was a leader in social justice. And she helped us all learn how to build a community of peace, justice, and love. Over these years, I've observed Flo as our energizer bunny, as a social justice leader, as she set the standard for everyone. It was during those years, the annual auction was our only major social justice program, and Flo was the producer of that operation. It brings back many happy memories. I don't know if any of you remember the divas that were here, starring in one of those shows. But think about all of the shows and all of the great gifts that Flo managed to round up from restaurants and merchants in our town. Woe betide to any merchant who said no to Flo Beckler. You just can't say no. Not only did she get great gifts that were great for and fun for our congregation, but they were lucrative for the community. Mainly, it was Immokalee workers and their families. Over the years, those fundraisers raised tens of thousands of dollars and made our congregation a kind of a beacon of goodwill in the community. Flo has been a consistent spark plug also to keep us intellectually on our feet. She was the spark plug for the Sunday Forum, which attracted, in some cases, with all due respect to the minister, you weren't here at the time, more members there and outsiders that were attending services. But she always had very interesting speakers. She kept us abreast of what's going on in the community and issues that Unitarians should be aware of. And then she followed up with Progressive Voices in recent years, making that available online. I do not believe in angels as described in the Bible or in many, many paintings where we have angels as heavenly creatures whom the artists actually never saw. They could only imagine. But on that day, 18 years ago, when I came in those doors, I was hugged by an authentic, down-to-earth Unitarian angel in the name of Flo Beckler. And I am so proud today to be the one, fortunately in this position, to award her with our annual Outstanding Member Award. Thank you, Flo, for everything you've done.
Right. Oh, we need to see that beautiful plaque that's in the bag right there. You want to pull it out?
What do I do?
Just pull this beautiful plaque out. Oop,
I got something dropped.
that's all right.
Would do that.
This is an appreciation award presented to Flo Beckler for the many contributions you have made to UUCGN over the years from a grateful congregation, January 30th, 2022. And Flo's name joins Roger and Sandy Brown and Kati and Dave Griffith on this plaque that sits out in our vestibule. Thanks again so much for everything, Flo.
Thank you.
Very deserved, and thanks, Bill, very much. All right, I'll take that. Oh, all right.
Flo, get in the middle.
I got lost in the middle.
Flo, do you want to take your mask down a little bit? Would you take your mask down?
Do what? Take my
Mask?
off.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that.
Take my sunglasses off too.
This will be official.
Thank you.
Bill, I'm so glad you took your
Okay. All right, thank you. All right. And these are for you as well, just
Oh, thank you so much.
to mark the day. All right, I'm going to put these over here for you.
Okay, let's put on this seat next to me.
All right. Let's join together in singing our centering hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Or
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. Then our heart is in a holy place.
if you would take some time this morning during our joys and sorrows to consider some of those long-haul people in your own lives who have been there for you through thick and thin. And I know that within the days and weeks of our lives, there are also folks we know who struggle, who need our thoughts and prayers. So this morning, as I offer you the time, I hope that you'll speak those names aloud, share them with the congregation, and for those of you online, I hope that you'll make those sounds as well and speak those names. Know that we're with you out there as well. Joys and sorrows. I heard Eleanor's name. I don't know if that was Eleanor Richardson or not, but Eleanor lost her mom, Kathy Motley, who was a member of this congregation for a long time, on Friday night. And Kathy was over 100, lived a long and good life. Eleanor made her way north before and was with her mom the last couple of days. So we send our blessings to Eleanor and locally here to Peter, who I'm sure is watching and thinking about his mother-in-law. Let's join together in the spirit of meditation. Spirit of life and love, honoring all those names spoken or held in silence, we express our gratitude for this community where we can share freely of our joys and our sorrows. This community where we can share deeply of ourselves, the whole of who we are on good days and bad, our best selves and those parts with which we struggle. On this particular day, we honor all of you who have answered the call to service, who have been given the gift of your time and your talent for the well-being of this community, its breadth and its depth. Whether you felt ready or not, you stepped up when you saw a need. We honor those who like the limelight, those who work best behind the scenes, and those who fall in between. Night or day or weekends, holidays, you rolled up your sleeves to pitch in, doing the work of community. Sometimes with the help of many hands, other times alone, you gave of yourself. We honor your loved ones who supported your efforts, worried for you when things piled up, and maybe occasionally grumbled at the extent of your commitment. And for all the gifts, great and small, that so many have given to this place from its inception to this moment. We take time today to sit in quiet gratitude.
Would you please raise your hand if you have ever been a teacher on any level, elementary, middle, high, or college? I suspected as much. For a second question, would you raise your hand if you can recite and identify the speaker of "Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of trouble, and by opposing end them"? Not as many, but still pretty proud. I love the topic for today because one of my long-haul heroes was a teacher. She inspired me so much that when I was in charge of supervising new teachers in my county in Maryland, I began every first of the school year meeting with a story about this person. Her name is Hazel Haley, and she taught English literature in Florida for 69 years. Now, I want to give you a moment to digest that. She didn't retire at the age of 69. She taught for 69 years. That is 2 back-to-back traditional 30-year careers plus 9. She retired at the age of 89. That makes her the longest-serving teacher in Florida and probably the United States, although there aren't enough old records to actually verify that. Over that span of time, she taught 3 generations of students. She taught through World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, segregation and integration, and the emergence of the internet. Her students thought she had been there for the Civil War. She graduated from Lakeland High School in Lakeland, Florida, a town in the Tampa Bay area, and returned several years later in 1939 to teach there. In 1952, when a new Lakeland High School building was opened, she was assigned to room 106 and remained in that very room until she retired in 2006. Let me draw a picture for you of room 106. Her students said it was more like a living room than a classroom, complete with overgrown plants and pictures on the wall. The school district eventually painted her room pink, which was her favorite color. And for a period of time in the 1980s, she actually had a photo of a towel-clad Tom Selleck on the wall. But everybody knew that her true love was Clark Gable. An osteoporotic little Hazel Haley hunched over her podium in her later years, using her wizened finger for emphasis. She drove a big old tank of a car to school that she named Earl. And you could set your watch by her arrival at 7:15 every Monday through Friday. Whether it was Beowulf or Macbeth or Hamlet, she taught with that rare combination of humor, structure, connection, and caring that makes teaching a special reward for those who love it and do it well. She wasn't a disciplinarian and didn't need to be. She demanded respect with her demeanor. She never punished students because she said, "Life is hard enough." And her real disciplinary secret? Guilt, she told a reporter once. It works. Hazel Haley never married. Over the years, more than 13,500 students were her children. Remember that quote from Hamlet I ask you to raise your hand for? Said Haley, "If the identification of the speaker of to be or not to be is the only question on a standardized test, where does that leave the meaning, the understanding of Hamlet's intimations?" To me, she would say, the virtue is that the play is not about revenge and not even about avenging a father's murder. It's not about that at all, she would say. It's an ideal picture of a young man who knew from the beginning what was right to do, and for 5 acts, he never did it. This is every man and woman. She would continue, "There's not a child I deal with when I say, 'Sweethearts, How many times during the last week have you known something was right to do, but you didn't do it? And how many of you know why you didn't do it? We don't know, darlings. This is true of all of us. We'd feel so much better about ourselves if we did what we knew was right to do. Knowing that, why didn't we do it? And that's the mystery. My favorite Shakespearean analysis from Miss Haley, though, is her take on Macbeth. She would put her finger on her chin, peer out into the room, and say, Shakespeare never says, now I'm going to give you a little moral. Instead, he shows us things about ourselves. Macbeth is a play about a man who paid too much for something he wanted too much. I had chills the first time I read about her saying that to students, and I still get chills repeating it even right now to you. 69 years of sharing her wisdom in the demanding job of teaching. That's what a long-haul person does. When she finally retired and was asked about the change she saw in students over the years, she replied that students in the year 2006 didn't give a whit of interest about mastering a body of language. They've come to believe that a test score is all that matters. Why should they waste their time, she said, learning something for which adults of the world have lost all regard? Does hearing that pain you as much as it does me? But despite that, every time I step in front of a group of students or click the Zoom link, Miss Hazel Haley is with me. Now that I'm over the 50-year mark in my teaching career, she is my beacon. But I'm not kidding myself. I ended full-time work in the classroom at the traditional 30-year mark and have taught part-time since then. I'm not showing up in any room 106 at 7:15 every weekday morning. She had more grit than I have. She observed that she wobbled a bit in her last years of teaching, but she didn't stop. I notice myself wobbling every now and again these days, but even though I will never be able to equal her astonishing teaching longevity on the front lines, I aspire to be a long-haul person. We need people who stay steady at the helm, thanks to those like Miss Hazel Haley and our Flo Beckler, who show us how to do it.
Love's the grace that makes us caring all through our lives, urges us to warmth and sharing all through our lives, speaks in us oppression naming, strives in us injustice shaming, lives in us true peace proclaiming all through our lives. In God's faithful love we flourish all through our lives, known and loved each other, nourish all through our lives. Though the world's demands are pressing, what life brings is left to guessing. Still we need to praise love's blessing all through
This past week, the congregation was awarded the annual Civic Award given by the local chapters of American United for the separation of church and state, now called the Turner Award, named after Rita and Bernie Turner, who helped found this congregation and many other institutions in Naples, and gave much of their time and talent and treasure to building community. Those of you who were there may remember that I mentioned a conversation I had with one of our members, a past president, and whose name is on the plaque that you just saw, Roger Brown. Roger talked about people in the congregation who were involved at the founding of the Naples chapter of Americans United, people like Herbert Herman and Mac McQuiston, Flo Beckler. Well, I wasn't surprised to hear her name invoked at that time, though I didn't know that Flo had been involved. And it made me think about all the people in this congregation over the years who I wish could have been there to feel gratitude that this congregation was recognized for the work it's done for so long, and for the work of those long-haul people, some of whom have passed, some of whom have left, some of whom are sitting among you, who continue to make this just a wonderful place for nurturing others, growing the Spirit, creating a platform where we can go out into the world and make a difference. From the time that I was a church rat growing up in the Unitarian congregation in Lexington, Massachusetts, I've had the honor to rub elbows with a good number of long-haul people. Long-haul people upon whose shoulders and pocketbooks and casseroles and daylight nighttime hours a church is built and maintained. Soon after Ann and I met as 20-somethings many years ago, we started attending that congregation in Lexington where I grew up. And it was really then that I realized the love and dedication of so many of its members who were still there after my hiatus of being away, always and continually rolling up their sleeves to do what needed to be done. People I can visualize and name. One of whom was Edith Fletcher. Edith had a very wide smile and freckles across her face, and she, I already thought, was old when she taught me Sunday school in the 1950s. But when we returned in our late 20s, there she was, still there, still working, president of the Women's Alliance and working at the Clothing Exchange, which raised money for the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. She was a member of the Denominational Affairs Committee. She had been the director of religious education for a long time. She was one of a small group of women in that congregation who created and worked to pass the Women in Religion resolution that passed General Assembly, our national association, in 1977, that demanded an examination of our movement's understanding of sex role stereotypes and patriarchal language, how it was used and how it permeated and influenced the way that our congregations and our national association worked, looking to change the way things were, the status quo. That particular resolution went on, influenced the change in our purposes and principles, those 7 principles we talk about. It influenced the development of a new hymnal, the gray hymnal, in which you see in front of you, where new and more interesting music was incorporated and language changed to be less patriarchal. Now, of course, Edith didn't accomplish all these things by herself or at once. Her contributions came in small acts of attention and commitment over weeks and months and years. Dedicated to what? What was it that motivated Edith, whether she was happy with the current minister or not, whether she thought the board's decision last month was the right one, but kept her there working active, enjoying community. What was it? When Ann and I moved on to Reading, Massachusetts to buy a house and raise our kids in the late 1980s, we settled ourselves in the Unitarian congregation there, and it didn't take long for us to recognize that some of those same personalities, not the same people, but some of those same personalities and that same work ethic was there in that congregation as well. The foundation of community. And again, I can name those folks and see them clearly. I think of Bill and Carolyn Grace and George and Ruth White, Chris and Jean Ritchie, Ruth and Jack Goldberg. There's one member of each of those couples left still in that congregation. They were there doing their thing when we arrived, and they enjoyed watching the next generation, Ann's and my contemporaries, start to pitch in, start to roll up their sleeves. That next generation of long-haul people, Lorraine and Steve and Drew and Jeff, Mark and Sharon, still there. Long-haul people creating the foundation of our lives together, creating a place from which to launch. What was it that spurred them on, that still spurs them on? My colleague, the Reverend Victoria Safford, who just retired last year from ministry in Matamidi, Minnesota, at the White Bear Unitarian Church, once found an apt quote from her fellow writer, and yes, fellow writer, Annie Dillard. Dillard was talking about the craft of writing, talking about the fact that there's some sort of idea that writers have some freakish peculiarity of willpower to be able to do what they do and get a product out the door. She writes, there's a common notion that self-discipline is a freakish peculiarity of writers, that writers differ from other people by possessing enormous and equal portions of talent and willpower. They grit their powerful teeth and go into their little rooms. But Dillard thinks that's a misunderstanding of what impels a writer. What impels a writer, she says, is a deep love and respect for the language, for literary forms, for books. It's a privilege to muck about with sentences all morning. It's a challenge to work to create a powerful effect. You don't do it from willpower. You do it for an abiding passion for the field. And I'm sure, she says, it's the same in every field, in every place. Writing is like rearing children, for example. Willpower has very little to do with it. If you have a little baby crying in the middle of the night and you depend only upon willpower to get you up and out of bed to feed the child's going to starve. You do it out of love. Willpower is a weak idea. Love is strong. There's nothing freakish about it. Caring passionately about something isn't against nature, and it isn't against human nature. It is our nature and is what we're here to do. Like Catherine's Hazel Haley, or my Edith Fletcher, or those folks that you thought about when I asked you earlier. The folks you think about as long-haul people are the folks who care, who express their love through their every deed, day after day, week after week. And here at Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples, you don't have to look too far to find those folks. I've often used the metaphor before of our beautiful memorial gardens and the folks who are out there week after week pruning and removing limbs and planting and tending. It's such a fabulous metaphor of people who are tending something and keeping it going. But it's not the only group of people in the congregation that exhibit that kind of love and passion. And there's folks out there who've been part of that community, and it is a community for a long time, and folks who come and go and lend their talents for a short time. And it's true with many other things that go on here. I think about the weekend meals program and people standing around now and organizing food and packing bags and getting them out the door to 130 young people every week. Routine things that make a difference. And they're not doing it to exercise their hands or just create those bags. They're there for love. The larger work of a congregation isn't any different. We don't often see that in the same light of taking the time to help create that community. We do have a goal that's articulated in our mission. We are a welcoming congregation, freely seeking intellectual and spiritual growth. We strive to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. We heard this morning how one person has taken that mission and made it her own in her own way and inspired many of us to do more. There are so many people in this congregation who are here day after day, who turn on the lights in the morning and sometimes turn them off at night, who find joy in perhaps singing an anthem or balancing a budget, packing a meal, figuring out how we can better welcome folks into our community. Long-haul people who keep this place going, who have done so over the years, seen the need, rolled up their sleeves, and come to create community. They are truly a blessing. And it's those folks who I have come to appreciate in my 7+ years here and who give me confidence in the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Greater Naples that it is a strong and healthy place with good people committed to the survival of this institution, of its impact in the community. The Turner Award, as wonderful as it is, doesn't take the place of the work that gets done here. For me, I think for those folks, even though they may not understand it, it comes down to being here and being ready for transformation. Being ready to be transformed in some way. And if that's true, then this is a place of hope as well. And of course, a place for which we care deeply. The very real and practical work of a congregation, its committees, all the planning, all the teaching, all the necessary doings and ushering and strategic visioning, and all those things are an integral part of the mission and are therefore just as much a means for our individual and collective transformation as being here on Sunday morning. As the weekly satisfying work of raking and trimming in the garden is all part of a long-term plan of its creation. Imagine a place where your own transformation comes not from sitting here in this hour together, though that may be good too, but from committing yourself to the long haul of crafting something special by truly entering and working day by day in community of people dedicated to building a life together. In a minute, we'll be joined via recording by the UUCGN choir performing How Can I Keep From Singing? It is dedicated to our long-haul people who through all the joys and wonders, through all the tumult and the strife, hear some distant music ringing. It's found an echo in their souls. It's the song they sing with each small act of attention and commitment over weeks and months and years, and they can't help but sing.
As we take time to consider these words and today's messages, let's also take time to show our gratitude for this community and all that it does. The morning's offering will be gratefully accepted. Wow, the announcements are actually short today. The reopening committee will meet again this coming Thursday to evaluate COVID numbers and consider possible changes. Stay tuned. What a thankless job. I don't even know who the members are of that ongoing committee, but it was so important to me to come back into the sanctuary. I just love being here in person, and I just want to thank whoever you are on that committee for keeping track of it and doing your best to make sensible decisions, and bravo for that. Second announcement, we've passed the official end of the pledge event, but there's some straggling things that need to be cleared up and a few more phone calls to be made. So if you've been procrastinating and haven't gotten your pledge in, please just do it. The budget's got to go on another thankless task, right? And I turn it back to Tony for one last announcement.
Thank you, Catherine. This coming Wednesday begins our long-standing, in fact, 25 years of Progressive Voices. We start on Wednesday evening with one of my heroes, the Reverend Kathleen McTeague, who will be talking about immigration justice. And then we go on from there. Jim Kenney will be back this and the following week. Some wonderful speakers about 21st century economy. We'll hear from Howard Simon at the end. I hope that you'll look at the poster, pick up one of these out front, and sign up. You need to be registered in order to listen in on Wednesday, so I urge you to do that. I don't know, will we have anybody here taking names this morning? I don't see anybody.
If anybody has any questions, I'll be out there.
Anne will be out in the foyer after the service. If you have questions, you can contact Anna, but there's registration information in the Sunday News, so look there. I do want to, since I invited her, I do want to encourage you to come and listen in. It's all Zoom this year. We decided again on Wednesday evening to hear Kathleen McTeague speak.
What time?
7 o'clock on Wednesday evening. You'll get a link if you register, so I hope that you'll do that. Kathleen was sort of my boss at the Unitarian Universalist College of Social Justice, where I was a program leader. That's an institution that's sort of in flux right now, but Kathleen has been involved in immigration issues in Central America and at the border for a long time, and has some deep experience to bring to our attention on Wednesday. This will be an issue that is important to the Republican side in the election to come, and this will be an issue that will be brought to the fore, I think, quite often in the weeks and months ahead. So please join us on Wednesday evening. And let's join together in singing, humming, let's stand and hum our closing hymn, Break Not the Circle. We'll sing 4 verses. Three verses.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not that circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and the people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken. Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
Our benediction comes from our speaker on Wednesday night, Kathleen McTeague. May the light around us guide our footsteps and hold us fast to the best that we seek. May the darkness around us nurture our dreams and give us rest so that we may give ourselves to the world. Let us seek to remember the wholeness of our lives, the weaving of light and shadow in this great and astonishing dance in which we move. Go in love, go in peace. Have a wonderful day.